Dr. John DeMartini. This is one of the most amazing and inspiring shows that you can listen into. If you want to be on the edge of your seats, if you want to open up your heart, if you want to expand your mind, and you want to meet incredible people, stay tuned, because you're just about to experience a transformative radio show that will change your life. And you're listening to the Dr. Pat Show that's coming up right next.
Welcome to the Dr. Pat Show. Talk radio to thrive by. Powerful, inspiring, and coming to you live, bringing you stories of people like you and me, busting through and living life full out. Get ready to dare to wonder what your life would be like if you knew you could not fail.
Oh, hey, everybody. I want to welcome you to a very special show. Listen, this is Autoimmune Warriors Unite. I want to introduce you to Ryanne. I want to introduce you to someone who created an organization called Discover Solutions. The website is discoversolutions.net. And I want to tell you about this because so many, millions and millions and millions and millions of people now are really where we are, autoimmune warriors. But did we know we were? Did we know what was going on with us? You're going to hear about Ryanne's personal journey, chronic disease, but when you're touched by something like that, if you are she or you are me, you do something. In my case, I built a network around solution-based talk. In her case, she's taken the whole thing on and providing solutions, coaching, webinars, all of the above, so that each and every one of us can be powerful in whatever mental health challenges we have. Ryanne, great to have you. This is a cool show. But let's talk about the notion, if we could start out, let's just talk about the state of affairs. I like to call it, if I had a town hall meeting, people would be intrigued on how little they know. And welcome. It's so great to finally now talk to you about this.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pat. I appreciate that. Autoimmune is going crazy in the world right now. And my research shows that there are over 100 autoimmune diseases that have been labeled. I don't know if there's more, if there's less, but things like diabetes, type 1 diabetes, and Parkinson's, and rheumatoid arthritis, and MS, I think we've all heard of these, though. These are fairly common, unfortunately, diseases, but there are so many of them. We have Lyme disease, chronic Lyme disease, we have Crohn's disease, we have Graves' disease, Sjogren's, mold illness, all of these things that are affecting people like us and people we know.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the impact, the effect. Let's talk about how they do affect us for a minute. Because this is, I think, autoimmune diseases. They come in so many different shades. There's like 50 shades of them. And it's very hard sometimes to even get a proper diagnosis, right?
Absolutely.
I went for 2 years with what they called a mystery disease, right? But let's talk about some of the symptoms that come up that we don't talk about, but that when people hear them, they say, oh man, that's what I'm going through.
I think we all know about the pain, I think, right? We hear about the pain of rheumatoid arthritis, and that's the big one. But we don't hear about the depression that hits us. We don't hear about the extreme fatigue. And I don't think you can even explain how horrendous that can be. It's not just tired, I need a nap. It's pervasive. We don't talk about the cognitive challenges, the anxiety. These things are prevalent and in some cases predominant. But we have weird neurological things that go on. I remember one day it was very odd. It felt like someone was dripping little pieces of hot metal down my back. And there was no reason for it. It was just one of those random neurological things that happens. And the experience, I think, of each person is different, even if they have the same disease, and the experience of each disease is different, but they all classify as one of these autoimmune diseases that is, to the rest of the world, sometimes invisible.
But when we say invisible, this is really the dilemma, right? You know what I'm struck by, and let's talk about this. What I'm struck by is that there's this level of chronic, and you touched upon pain. Remember how long it was before anybody would recognize fibromyalgia?
Oh,
Do you
forever.
do you remember that?
I
I
do.
had a friend that I don't even know how to explain the experience, but couldn't touch anything.
Right.
Like couldn't touch like the clothes. And it took, my God, decades for anybody. Well, we're still trying to get the medical association to really understand or approve chronic Lyme. But from where you sit in the world, you are the autoimmune warrior. And today's show is about autoimmune warriors unite.
Absolutely.
What has happened? What got you smack dab in the heart to have you become a specialist in this and to come out in the world and say, I have got to combat this. I have got to combat trauma. We've got to be doing something, especially, hello, as a psychotherapist, because part of this is when we don't recognize the mental burden that this takes.
Right. Right. I was a combat trauma specialist and still am. However, I ended up just randomly ending up with clients with autoimmune disease. And one client in particular told me a story about, you know, her journey with trying to get diagnosis. And she used the word traumatic. And it clicked. It was like, that's exactly it. This is traumatic. It's horrendous to go to a doctor and have them say, oh, I think you're looking for attention. Maybe you need to find a counselor. And they may not say that outright, but that's what they're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, they do say it outright. And, where do we
Yeah.
have it show up? I think with RA now, we don't so much,
Right.
because there's enough out there to know, but we can't know. When we're talking about a level of pain, we're not talking, let's just be very clear. When we're talking about autoimmune, let's talk about the degree of pain. The degree of pain we're talking about that people experience that nobody wants to believe is not even, it's so far beyond a 10 on the chart that you have people trying to write in their pain level when they have to answer that questionnaire. That famous questionnaire you get? And it's been so long, it's taken people so long to be able to get pain medication. Now, I'm the least person that you'll ever hear talk about pain medication because of my field in addiction and recovery. However, there are some things that you've just got to get relief from. What happens from where you sit as a combat trauma specialist when people don't get relief for pain? What is the impact of that? Forget about the disease. Let's just
Right.
talk about autoimmune warriors uniting to try to get some both conventional and holistic relief for pain.
Right. When you look at it and you think about the chronic pain and all of the symptoms, when you're trying to hide it because people have given up on you because it's chronic, so you're just looking for attention. You don't want to embarrass yourself. Then you're trying to prove it to doctors so that you can get some relief, but you're still working because you have no choice but to work because you have to feed yourself and your family, but you can't get disability unless you can't work for a year and you still have to pay your bills. It becomes this convoluted, complex, almost a trap. You feel trapped. You can't explain it to people unless they've been there. They're not going to get it. They can try to empathize, but they don't really get it.
Yeah.
And then you don't want to explain it because you want to be normal. And you don't want to be accused of like trying to get attention. And let's face it, we all need attention, but maybe not that kind. Maybe that,
Yeah.
oh, I feel so sorry for you kind.
Yeah.
So it becomes very complex and traumatic.
How do people respond? How do your clients respond? Because, let's talk about what you're doing today and why you're here in this show and what you're launching. Because you're not just talking about it, you're not showing up as an expert, you're actually doing something about it. You're creating programs and, you're creating them because you have seen responses from clients that don't even feel heard. What do they respond? How do they respond when they finally talk to somebody that gets it?
The response is I'm going to choke up here. It's overwhelming to have someone understand I had to crawl to the toilet. Imagine the indignity of having to crawl to the toilet. And I know that you've been there.
Yeah.
You've lived it.
Yeah.
And yet, if the house was set on fire, that person could get out.
Yeah. But we understand why that is from a psychological perspective now.
Absolutely.
Why in the case of, what do they call it in I can't remember what they call it in psychology, but that there's a phrase for it. It's like a really bizarre phrase. It's like we have autoimmune warrior. An autoimmune warrior is just like anybody else. But the minute you get triggered by a rise in adrenaline based on an emergency,
Right.
where you have no other choice, you have superhuman strength. We have heard stories of women lifting up cars.
Absolutely. So if you can get out, if the house is on fire, obviously you're fine.
Yeah, exactly. No, we're not fine. But what we're talking about are the people. I'm telling you, the campaign that I did a number of years ago to shine a light on Lyme disease. As a matter of fact, I'm creating a video and board game with these really cool characters because people still don't get it. But the idea that you're able to speak to the public to say, we hear you.
Yes.
Your friends may not hear you, your spouse may not hear you, your children, they don't really understand why with the fibromyalgia they can't hug you. You see, part of this is being heard, but also to be able to provide solutions. And Ryanne, that's what you're doing. You're also providing solutions. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing today.
I'm developing a group that is partially a group and partially individualized because we want that social connection, and I think that group is very powerful, but then having individual attention because everyone is different is also powerful. And we look at the resources you have, time, abilities, money, all of these go under the heading of resources, and we figure out what your priorities are. And we're not talking about the surface things like, oh, go to work. And we're talking about what your soul wants in life, what you've forgotten about in your struggle. We want to find out what those priorities are so that your limited resources go to the right place.
Yeah.
We want
That
to
is
learn
so.
efficiencies.
Oh my God, aligning that. You see, what you're doing is you're meeting, my words, you're meeting people where they are.
Mm-hmm.
Thank goodness for Dr. Darvish and Dr. Ronnie for me. I mean, if it wasn't for Dr. Nushin Darvish, naturopath right here in the Pacific Northwest, and Dr. Ronnie up there in Martha's Vineyard, and there are other people in between. But these two, they fought the system. They came out of the gate. They provided solutions, but they did something at the medical level that nobody was really doing. They acknowledged it. And so what you're doing is, and they aligned what was available, what could be created. They aligned it specifically for what you and I are talking about. Because half the time, the solutions that are given, right, may or may not align with an individual's priorities.
Right. Right.
They may not. Sometimes, what's your website? Let's just make sure people know how to get a hold of you. I mentioned it at the top, but let's mention it again if we could.
We're at discoversolutions.net. Remember, it's a .net.
And they can sign up for the group.
They can absolutely sign up for the group. They can reserve their spot. We start January 2nd. So we're starting at the beginning of the year, right after the holidays. We can jump in and change your new year.
You know, I want to encourage you. I really want to talk to all of you now. You may be listening to this show and you may be thinking it's not me, but I guarantee you, you know somebody that really needs this kind of support. Please run, don't walk, and give them this information. Autoimmune Warriors Unite. This is the way that we have to come forward, because even today, with what Ryanne is doing, we don't know what we don't know, and we're not going to know unless we all come together and come out and speak it. That's how we begin to change the system and get solutions. You know, let's talk about the program for a little bit. The program is set up. I don't know about you, if I did not have the show at the time, started the show in 03, 6 months later, it hit me. Like one day I was great. Like March 31st, I was great. And April 1st, I was not. Just like that. And I went on this journey. I'm not sure if I would even be here today had I not started the career I had, paying a lot of money for airtime. Do you know that I was never meant to do this? I was always meant to do this, but according to paper, I should have been a consultant. But the best I could do was keep buying airtime, and I stayed on this pathway. And I'm really thrilled that we will be launching our health and wellness channel. What is it for you? And I know this is emotional because it's emotional for me. But what is it for you that gets you so fired up that you've started a campaign and have opened to doors to as many people out there that want it?
It all goes back to my personal experience. I got sick when I was 3. I got diagnosed 4 years ago. So my whole life was about trying to be normal when I was sick. But then you have those days, the good days, right? Your friend with fibromyalgia. I'm sure that some days you can give her a hug and it's fine.
Yeah.
And then other days you can't. So you have this push pull. Oh, you're fine. Oh, but today you must be looking for attention. So it's this crazy thing. And then in working with my clients and hearing their stories, I learned more about me. And we together on this journey found solutions and found ways to fine tune our lives. And even the little things can make a world of difference.
Yeah. Oh, let's talk about a little thing. What are the possibilities that during this journey, I open up the show and I find a product called Topricin? And I find a guy that created this, invented the product, because he was a Vietnam vet and had major neuropathy. You know, and by the way, neuropathy, they don't even know what to tell you about neuropathy, but from Vietnam. And so Lou Paradise creates a product now, ultra sensitive to products. But can you imagine finding a pain product that you can put on topically that is all naturally based, that works? You see, this is one thing. There are many things that those of us that have gone along the way. Now, I'm not a medical doctor, and I'm going to say it to you, do your own homework. But Linda, my best friend, will tell you that there were some nights that she would pull that bottle of Topricin out, throw it on my entire body, very, how should I say it, generously. And then I would wrap myself basically with an ace bandage, because it was the only thing that could give me relief. So why are you and I here today? We're here to help people find solutions that they may not be able to find on their own. Isn't that what you're doing?
Absolutely. 100%. 100%.
And when you're in that condition, you don't sleep. And if you don't sleep, what is the mental, emotional, and cognitive impact from where you sit for even the best autoimmune warriors, what is the impact when people don't get enough sleep?
The brain only heals and detoxes itself when we are asleep. So when you have inflammation in your brain, which is mind-boggling that that can even be a thing, but it is a thing, and then you don't sleep and you lay there and you know you're not sleeping. I mean, you're not, and so you start struggling to sleep and it makes it worse. And we have all this inflammation and it becomes a snowball effect. Now you're not thinking clearly. Now you're embarrassed because you're not thinking clearly. You can't carry on conversations the way you want to. It's an ongoing struggle that is indescribable at times. But your brain, the depression, the anxiety, it's not working right anymore. It's not firing right anymore. And then the next day you get up and you try to put on a brave face and get through it.
Yeah. You know, that's what I love about what you're creating. When autoimmune warriors unite, we're not just uniting for pain or pain solutions. Let's talk about the thing that I mentioned to you earlier. Had it not been for this thing that I do today, this was a place of joy I had never experienced in my life. It really was. It was joy. I loved it. I interviewed some of the most amazing people. I had no experience in this. I mean, really, my show was called Crust Busting Your Way to an Awesome Life, but it was a joy point. I was doing 14 hours a week of this at my worst condition. But guess what? That neutralized whatever was going on. Tell us about how you focus on that in the groups you're forming.
Well, inflammation is exacerbated by stress hormones, and it's neutralized by endorphins. So the more endorphins we can add into our life, the better. And having a reason to fight your way out of bed, having that purpose and reason gives us endorphins and physically helps to quell some of the inflammation. So it's insane that what we do and how we think and where we target our resources can actually affect our physical capabilities and our physical condition at the time.
Yeah. And so isn't that part of what you do really? You know, we're talking about coming together as a group and really talking about how to make adjustments in our lives where we're looking at resources. And 9 times out of 10, when you're in this situation, you're looking at resources, but you don't look at the resources, the places, the things that bring you joy. And even when you do, you feel guilty about them because then everybody's around you like, yeah, you're really not that sick. I mean, don't you hear this?
Absolutely, absolutely. Celine Dion put out a movie on her autoimmune,
Right.
and talked about this, about she's afraid to go out because if someone sees her enjoying herself with her family, they can say, well, why aren't you putting on a concert for me? And it's kind of that's it in the nutshell of if we look like we're living our life, then we can't be sick. And then it's just this snowball effect that gets crazy.
You know, I want to talk about something here in the last minutes we have left because it's about finding our priorities and finding our joys and dreams. But there's something that also does happen. We'll probably talk about this more on another show. For me, I never let on what was going on with me. I never let on to the audience. Now, because of the nature of some of the shows and the way the direction of the show and then the network went, you could pick up that something was going on. But I was out in the world. I was doing events. I was speaking. I was emceeing. But something was happening to me. You know, my cells stopped working and I gained like 50 pounds. And people think she's just eaten too much pizza. But that's part of the mental trap where we feel so ashamed, so guilty. And then there's another part for me. I really didn't want people to talk about my disease because I was really battling it at a level of healing. What do you say about that and how you help people in learning these efficiencies navigate through those waters?
I think the goal is not to adjust your life to the point where you're going to live the rest of your life that way. The goal is to adjust your life to support your healing, to support yourself as you bring in these specialists who are tackling and are beating autoimmune. So we need things like cooking with bigger pots, which I know sounds silly, but you make extra and you portion it off and you freeze it for those days when there's no way you can
Yeah.
cook a meal, and you have something to pull out of the freezer and have that nutritious meal that you need instead of dialing for takeout. It's just very practical things that can change your life. Again, it's little tweaks that we do that allow us to put our energy where it should be, on healing and on joy and on living our best life.
I love that. And there's so many more things you'll share. I mean, for me, I love living off of miso soup. It was the easiest thing to create, and do in advance. You could cut everything up. But these are the kinds of things you're going to help people with. Again, how do people find out about the group? How do they join the group?
They can go to discoversolutions.net and they can click on sign up now. They can have it all paid for, all done. They can reserve their spot, and they can reserve the time that they're going to be seeing me for their individual sessions. So they can be completely ready to go for January 2nd and jump in with both feet.
I want to make a plea to those of you out there right now that may be in this situation, but I want to make a plea for some of you out there that either have a friend, a family member, someone close to you that is suffering. This is a gift you can give them. For me, there were points in time in my life I couldn't do things for myself, and I had a best friend that would give me a gift like this. So I'm just asking you all, if there's a way and people that are really struggling and suffering, think about what you could do, because what Ryanne is doing is she's opening up the door to help these folks. And sometimes we have to help other people that cannot do for themselves. Ryanne, thank you for today. What's your personal message? What would you like to leave us with?
I just think that everyone with autoimmune and without, they need to focus on the joy. There's so much out there if we just start looking for
Yeah.
it. And even if you're in bed today, there are things to be joyful about, and that will help turn your life around.
Again, website. Thank you so much. Please tell us how to sign up.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pat. And you can sign up at discoversolutions.net and reserve your spot. There are 5 spots open, only
Thank you.
5.
Oh, very good. And for those of you out there, please, I hope you hear what I'm saying. Sometimes the people we love, the people that are close to us, can't do this. They can't even imagine signing up. They can't even imagine getting help. So what I'm asking you to do is you too can become an autoimmune warrior and pay it forward and help somebody else get some relief, to learn some ways to experience and bring joy back in their lives. Thank you all for tuning us in and turning us on. We'll see you next time.